Okay, why don't we get started? Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I'm sorry, call to order. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag of the United States of America. Roll call.
Chairman, Matt Foreman,
Here.
Sharing,
Here.
Brian Nolan, John Ritter, not here, Carl Carlin,
Here.
Jeff Moore, Jeff Hunt,
Here.
Mark Favazza,
Here.
Paul Moran here, Hart Nelson,
Here.
Jerry Bilderbeck, John Nürnberger. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Let's move on. Did everyone have a chance to look at the agenda? That, okay. And we're going to move on to the approval of the December 13th Planning and Zoning meeting minutes. I believe there was a change. Hart?
One small correction, Mr. Chairman, if we could. I think it's the fourth paragraph. It has Mr. Hart. I think it should be Mr. Nelson. They gave me two last names, so it's confusing, but that's the only change.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We're good. All right, with the change, I take it. And do we have any citizens in the audience or online who wish to comment on something other than what's on the agenda tonight? Doesn't look like it. All right. Old business. This is P and Z item 23-12, an amendment to ordinance 4810 and 4602 for the conditional use permit for the Chick-fil-A restaurant located at 8590 Eager Road. Is the applicant here? Yes. Okay. Could you state your name and your address, please? Or the business address?
Yeah, my name is Madeline Hart. I'm the engineer on this project.
I am the operating partner for the.
Okay,
Oh, 8590 Eager Road.
okay.
There. Yeah. There we go. Awesome. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay. So like I said, my name is Madeline Hart, an engineer on this project, and I'll let Brett Tom take us away on our first
Sure.
slide here.
Absolutely. So on the first slide, it shows the existing layout of our, of our restaurant. And the first proposed redesign that we're looking for is the egress and the ingress of the restaurant, showing where people turn into. The narrowness of those two lanes entering and exiting the restaurant, we're wanting to move these parking spots closer to the building than they are currently. As those guests back out of their parking spots, they're blocking the patrons coming into the restaurant to get into the drive-through, causing a backup out of the shopping center up on the Eager Road. Just wanting to widen that to create that, eliminate that congestion. And then as you get down through our team outside doing order taking, as you enter the concrete from the parking lot, we're wanting to widen that queue and make it 2 lanes going around underneath our canopy, thus doubling the amount of cars that we have there, which will also give us the opportunity in the future to run a dedicated lane for our mobile drive-through, which has shown a 25% increase over the last 2 years. That is usually the line that causes the biggest congestion up to the front, causing everybody to back up on the Eager Road. Then that brings us around to the opposite side of the building where we serve the food. The ask is that we can eliminate the first 2 parking spots in the front of the building and creating a lay-by lane to pull one, if possibly two cars forward, just to minimize the safety concerns for our team. Right now, as it is, they have to cross moving traffic to go down by Beauty Brands to pass out orders for cars that are either large or they're waiting on a special item. It just eliminates that confusion and creates a consistent flow for our guests and safety for our team.
So yeah, so that's a little bit of the background. So to see the physical changes that we're proposing here. So just kind of to reiterate, we're going to be pushing the stalls closer to the building, thus widening this lane here that allows the any vehicles parked here to make their maneuver and stay within this side of the lane as opposed to crossing over to here. Then as the incoming traffic loops around, they'll be met with this this expanded drive-through lane with the two sides. So again, kind of alleviating that congestion that you saw in the aerial that keeps building up around there. And then here's that lay-by lane that was mentioned. Again, we feel strongly that this will eliminate, again, mainly the safety concerns and as well as any congestion created from, let's say, someone's making or put in a more complex order or, is just taking a little bit longer. The staff is able to just come right out here to this lane instead of crossing all the way through and, figuring out which car they're looking for over here in this other parking lot. So that is, those are the proposed conditions, and we just have a zoomed in version here, if you will, on some of the main points that were in the letter that were given, the response letter that was given to us. So I think there was some concern over the 4.5-foot marking here for the sidewalk in front of where the patio area is that leads to the door. This actually doesn't include the width of the curb. So in order to achieve the five-foot minimum that was requested, we typically do include that in our width. That's actually allowed per ADA code as well. So this is 5 feet when you take curb into consideration. I believe there was a comment related to our patio fence. We'll be replacing that with the exact same type that's there right now. It just needs to be removed to be able to complete this construction, but it'll be same in kind, exact same style and coloring and all that stuff. And then here is the lay-by lane, just again, a little bit more zoomed in to kind of understand the movement that's going here. Again, we feel that this is a more natural movement that cars will be able to recognize as they, instead of coming in through here, having hesitation, looping around. This allows the staff to, have a little bit more control about where the cars are going to, go ahead. And they can just let them easily know to pull forward here, not have to cross over any sort of traffic. And then the car will only be able to make a right turn lane here, right turn here into this lane and just join this traffic as usual, as it's already operating.
Question or any discussion from the board? Well, yeah, how about a staff report? Let's do the staff report, I guess, first, or...
Oh, sorry.
Whitney Kelly on behalf of the City of Brentwood. As the applicant has indicated, they are looking to revise their layout for the drive-through lane. And largely due to COVID and more solidifying their current operations and providing that lay-by lane, as they referred to it. The original CUP was issued in 2015 and then modified in 2017 to the current site coverage of 78.9%. due to a site coverage bonus of outstanding landscaping and outdoor dining area. They are reducing the number of parking spaces from 66 to 49. The remainder of the required 68 parking spaces will be shared within the rest of the Brentwood Shopping Center. And they are maintaining the coverage from 78 at 78.9%. The patio and outdoor dining area is being reduced, as they indicated, and additional landscaping has been added along the north side of the building. And the drive lane width to the east has been reduced from 42 to 36. CBB, we've asked CBB to provide the traffic engineer, so they're, as well as PDS is here to review the landscaping. They've both indicated a concern with that lay-by lane. And the issue of extending the sidewalk north was where I was indicating needed the 5 foot to create a buffer to the north patio area that is being reduced, where the parking spaces are right up against the fence. So the sidewalk would add, allow for these cars here to move, to be able to walk instead of going behind the cars, be able to get to a sidewalk along here. It would provide buffer for an overhang of a vehicle, and as well as for the fencing, buffering for the fencing. So it's continuing the sidewalk to the north patio area. So you can see here the drawings that they're extending the drive-through lane further into where the existing parking lot is to provide that extra lane. And this is the lay-by lane area. I hope you my arrow. That they've pointed out as well. There is a large transformer that we've noted as a concern for those exiting, and but I will have Lee address his concern, his parking study and findings, as well as Andy for the landscaping. But you can see here the overlay that was provided with the existing aerial versus their proposed application. Close up at the patio area.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Lee Cannon. I'm a principal traffic engineer with CBB. Offices here in St. Louis, and just for the record, I am the city's on-call traffic engineer, so I prepared my review of this site with the interest of the city in mind, also looking to see what the developer was trying to do, or the restaurant operator was trying to do. I do believe that they're trying to modify their site to better suit their needs and better serve their customers. We're just trying to make sure that they accurately meet the code and that they operate in a safe manner from a perspective of traffic flow. CBB did the original traffic and parking studies for Dearborg's Brentwood Point when it was developed. I don't really recall when that was, but it was 25 years ago or so. And a Macaroni Grill sat on this lot. Macaroni Grill had a relatively low traffic and parking flow, and I think that's maybe why in 2015 they were replaced by the Chick-fil-A. CBB did the traffic and parking on that site, and it was well known when the site was developed. They had the site that they had, and they fit the site plan that could fit on that space. When I'm speaking tonight, I'll talk about the lot, which is Chick-fil-A itself, but it resides on a site plan that has overarching approvals, and I'll call that the site, the shopping center as the site. During COVID, some big challenges came in with a lot of different businesses, including restaurants, and so Chick-fil-A has put in some temporary features to beef up the drive-through facilities to be able to get more drive-through customers through, and some of those are temporary conditions that they're still using. They're very effective as well, getting more drive-through lanes. A lot of restaurants have figured out the kind of the pinch point in the system is the ordering. The way the site's laid out today, though, they have a one-lane flow on either side of the dual-lane order area. I visit this site routinely. I'm probably there once or twice a month, so I really have a good feeling for what's going on here. And I think the dual lanes that they've proposed will be a very good improvement for traffic flow on the site. So as they reduce the congestion of entering to the order board, then they reduce the queue that's flowing back through the site and towards their entrance at the center. The parking, to my observation and knowledge, around what I'll call the corner. So the parking that is oriented in an east-west aisle fashion doesn't really get used that much because folks kind of get used to the fact if you go down that far, you'll get stuck and blocked within the drive-through queues. So overall, parking is fine. Chick-fil-A doesn't necessarily on the lot need to meet a parking requirement, but we did some calculations within the report. They would not meet the parking requirements of a standalone restaurant in Brentwood, but there's plenty of parking on the site. So I believe they already have the employees parked off of the lot somewhere else in the center. They have a lease with Deerberg's, an entity of the Deerberg Shopping Center, and they have an easement agreement in place which says that they share access and they share parking stalls. So all those legal agreements, to my knowledge, I am not an attorney, but are in place for them to use those parking lot stalls on the center. So we also did a parking count. What we found was the parking generally in the north-south aisle arrangement is full. Up to something like one stall open in that north-south aisle area. And so they are pushing some patrons off of the site, generally to the southeast of that main intersection for the driveway coming off of Eager Road. With that, they will be reducing the total number of parking stalls on the shopping center site. And I do believe that that number will go below the number that's approved for the shopping center overall. So I've recommended that that overarching number needs to be revised so we'll all be nice and code compliant, so that the Chick-fil-A change doesn't throw the Deerberg Shopping Center out of compliance. So that will have to happen. And that number that I suggested was 850, and it wasn't just the few stalls that Chick-fil-A is reducing. I figured, we're knocking it down a little bit. The required number, according to your reduced code, is a lot less than 850, but I figured we would just maybe suggest 850 as a number that we would have some flexibility left. So I am in full favor of the dual lane entrance segment with the reduction in the parking. However, I do not support, because of a variety of different reasons, the lay-by lane as shown on the site plan. I wasn't necessarily asked as part of my work to figure out how the lay-by lane would work, but I do know that they need it. From an operational perspective, you come up to the window, they either hand you your food or your food's not ready. So when the food's not ready, they have to send you somewhere. I've seen in the past where they've been southeast of that major intersection. I've seen in the past where they've been in the north-south aisle parking area and adjacent front doors. And I've also seen where they're on the very north side of the retail strip building, parked facing east. But when I looked at it again tonight, and I had mentioned that I understood the need for the lay-by lane or the operational need for that, I looked and I wondered if they couldn't figure out a plan to maybe, and I don't have the site plan or access. Whitney, can you please point to the dumpster enclosure on the far west edge of the dumpster enclosure that would be west of the transformer? And I'm going to peek so I make sure.
This is the dump.
So this is the first that I've thrown this out there, but knowing that they have a need and a want, and that the plan that they have, I believe creates traffic congestion at a very congested and confusing area already with 3 intersections very close together. You've got the retail north-south driveway, you've got the Chick-fil-A exit from the drive-through, you've got the Chick-fil-A drive-through, and then you've got the major intersection coming off of Eager Road. That major intersection is carrying 1,000 cars an hour in the peak flows. That's a lot of traffic. So there's a lot of action going on. There may be the ability to investigate punching a lane out at that point, out only from the drive-through area. They would have to figure out operationally, you know, from the southwest corner of the building to the southeast corner of the building, which I don't know that dimension, but can they communicate that, hey, we don't have, you know, Mr. Cannon's order yet, send him to bypass, you know, then they could reconstruct. I believe there's 2 parking stalls on the east end of the dumpster enclosure. They're kind of head-in spaces. They face northbound.
Okay.
I have a photograph with 2 vehicles parked head-in at that location. And maybe they could pull the trash enclosure further towards that exit. I don't want to create a side distance issue there either, but that would be a better place for those folks to pop out of that single file drive-through lane, and then they could make a left turn and line up at the end of that building there. So that's what I have. I believe you all have my report. I'm happy to answer any detailed questions, and I'm an engineer, and I try to not say too much, but I can't help it. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question if I could, just a clarification perhaps for staff. I think I heard Mr. Cannon say that the comprehensive site plan needs to be adjusted to reflect this. Is that something that is required to approve this, or is that something that they would just make them existing non-conforming, because obviously it's not included as a part of this application? So I just wanted to get clarification on that.
I don't really think that it makes the rest of the shopping center non-conforming. When we looked at the parking spaces for another restaurant in the Brentwood Point Shopping Center, we did the calculation. There was a supply of 887 spaces on site. So we would just relook at that when another CUP would come in for this site. I don't believe it made it non-conforming. The shopping center itself had a 25% reduction in the overall number of parking spaces. So that would be further review, but that could be done at a later date with the with a second CUP review. But his recommendation with that the shopping center parking be reduced to 850 stalls, and when we looked at the parking for the overall site, there was 887 on site. So
To follow up on
So-
that, with the new code, if you take the 25% reduction, you know, they would be down as low as 600 spaces. So the actual number of cars parked is going to be fine. And the code, if recalculated for the current code, would be fine. My point to bring up for the city to consider was that there's an ordinance that approved something that will be affected, which was the 887 number.
Understand. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for Lee about this lay-by lane. So I like your idea, but just want to focus a minute on what they're proposing. What is your primary concern? Because isn't that, there's already 3 intersections there? So is it that it's
Yes.
adding more traffic there?
Just so with traffic, with intersections, we call those conflict points. So the more conflict points there are, the more decisions to be made, the more confusion there is, and you add volume to conflict points, and it creates congestion and safety concerns. So we have a already pretty difficult area to navigate, and adding one more thing that's going on in that very difficult, compact space, in my opinion, is just not a good idea. If we were to relay out the shopping center and expand things a little bit and give some more breathing room to the whole thing, we would lay it out differently. They are really trying to do the best they can within the space they have. I'm just suggesting that I have a concern that it could create more problems than it would solve for traffic flow.
I think there's a way to, I guess 2 questions. One, the way they propose it almost looks like you could turn left out of the lay-by lane as well, which would be another conflict point.
They've already stated that, it would be their intent to only go right and out.
Right. There's no curb preventing someone
Yes,
from turning
and
left.
even if they were to put some curvature on that curb, it would be difficult to prohibit it. But then again, if you're leaving the lay-by lane, you just grabbed food, there might be an instance where you didn't get your ketchup packets or something where you would want to go backwards. But there's not a whole lot of need for most folks to do that, so I don't really worry about that too much. It's just that it's another thing happening right there with those already 3 congested intersections.
And then with respect to the transformer, is that fixed in that location, or would it be possible to almost switch the lay-by lane and the transformer to have the flow of the lay-by lane go to the south?
I'm a civil engineer that never deals with those types of things, but they're extraordinarily expensive to move. It's not an easy solution. It's a possible one. It's physically possible.
Thank you.
Question, point of order question. My questions may stray from Mr. Cannon to the presenters. Is that okay? And it may be Mr. Cannon as well. So I'm just thinking, I see the difficulty. It's clearly a challenge, and it's as good a solution as anything that I think anybody else is going to come up with. So it's hard to. My concern is you mentioned a couple of things that indicate that this is almost like a temporary measure, right? So the flow just keeps growing, right? So, there's, to my mind, it's a bit of a fiction that those spots to the north of the site are even really parking spots anymore, right? They're not now. They're drive-through lanes for you now, right? So I feel like we're maintaining a bit of a fiction, and it's just going to change and continue to go the direction it's going, which is you're going to have, kudos to you, you're going to have more business, and that's great, right? So is this, and then you still have 2 lanes that now have to funnel into 1, which is still a pinch point, right? So do you, I know you're here for one particular application, but do you foresee a situation in which you have to come back and change it again? Is there a more comprehensive solution that might cost more money and take more time to figure out, but might be better in the long run? I guess that's the question. And to that point, it's clear from the diagram that the diagram to the right that almost, I'm putting numbers on it. I'm not qualified to put numbers on it. That's Mr. Cannon's job. But let's say 90% of people are coming in, going into the drive-through and finishing their travel through the drive-through, right? Maybe 10% are coming back out, maybe less, right? So I'm actually less concerned with the sort of traffic coming out of your proposed, by lane, because I think it really isn't a lot of people that get affected by it. It's also a bit of a fiction because it's just one car, right? So it's going to help a little, not a lot, right? And so from the city's point of view, I feel The big concern is how it backs up on Eager Road, right? You know, honestly, with my own personal feelings, how you navigate it within your own site is really of less interest to me, right? So that all said, if there a larger solution that fixes the problem on Eager more that we haven't discussed tonight? That's a long question. I apologize, but
I would say so. The way that we have designed this currently with the dual lanes is meant to fix the demands that they're experiencing right now. I don't know if I can't speak to their projected, patrons that they're anticipating. But while yes, it's still queuing, the goal is to get the queuing out of the parking lot. It's just to make it a little more funneled and streamlined in a natural movement for cars as opposed to the complicated parking that they were experiencing in that northern area, and that which then caused that backup that Brett explained goes onto Eager Road. So the idea is, as this becomes more streamlined and able to move the cars more efficiently, that will alleviate just really any sort of backup that they're having there, because it's more about the flow as opposed to the quantity. If the flow is moving well because they have a more streamlined process, then I don't anticipate the additional queuing still pushing back into the main road over there. Does that answer your question?
sort of. I guess, and there may be no answer to my question honestly, but I just foresee that it's still 2 into 1. At the moment it's sort of 3 into 1. Now you're making that's where the problem will always remain, right? And as I look at the site, it's just too tight a corner to get 2 to turn the corner, so you're kind of stuck, right? Without moving your building, which you're not going to do. You almost need 2 windows. There's lots of things I'm asking that are probably not possible, but it just feels like a patch, not a full solution. Just so.
Side of the building where our window is, where you'd like to have 2 lanes go around. So then you have to repurpose the dumpster, you have a storage area out there, you got a you hit the nail right on the head. 10% at max of our guests have to pull out of the line. Our max car count at our restaurant is 315 cars in 1 hour. So you're talking 3 cars maybe have to use that bypass lane. On a normal day, you have more people pulling out of a parking spot that would be there than you will in that pass-through lane where they're already facing forward and they can make it right. There's I think as we proceed, there could always be challenges on how we can continue to improve. Friday go from that stop sign to make a left out of the facility all the way around back up to Eager. So I think we're trying to propose as many options as possible to keep as many cars on our lot to free up Eager and the shopping center. Anybody really understood the gravity of the 315 cars an hour. That's an amazing feat. So there's 3,600 seconds in an hour. If you're serving 315 cars, that means that you served each car in 11 and a half seconds. McDonald's used to hold the standard 20 years ago when they were slinging food at 45 seconds a car. Okay, that's 11 and a half seconds is crazy. Crazy fast. Very good, what I meant. So there's always going to be the pinch point in the system. So you have the order board, which now you currently have 2 pavilion order boards that go back to 1 lane. So as they open up the second lane
feeding into that order board, that will help. They've got their time down to 11.5 seconds. I don't know if they can go any faster than that. I just have no idea that they could do that. And then the actual time to prepare the food and hand it out the window, right? Those times. And then you have the front of the line with the lay-by. So the question might be, if there's only 3 cars, how much time does that lay-by impact, that system? So it would be great if they could have, 2 food service windows, but I don't know how you would do that because you'd be in between cars. Ultimately, they may have to look at a solution to have more ground to the south or less building to the north in order to get those 2 full lanes to come all the way through. If they continue to succeed, and grow, this was really in response to your inquiry, there's always going to be the pinch point. Where's the pinch point now? Okay, if you fix that, where's the pinch point next? They know, their business well enough to understand where those are. So each time it's going to be moving on to the next pinch point. The dual lanes as they got it shown now are definitely going to reduce the queue length of the drive-through, which is going to help and improve, the flow and the safety and getting in and out of the stalls in the north-south parking aisle for sure.
Have people outside the window, now it's a door, so we can effectively serve multiple cars at one time. The pinch point usually is not where it goes from 2 lanes to 1 at the order point. The pinch point is usually getting traffic out of our way. And I've been doing this for 28 years with Chick-fil-A. This is the busiest location I've ever been a part of. Adjusting to the daily operations is something good at doing. So eliminating the pinch points as they come up with that 2 lanes into 1 is something we've always been able to navigate through. It's more so creating the space for the guest so we can continue.
Just observation. I mean, it seems to me that stepping back and looking at the big picture, which is to alleviate the pressure on Eager Road and cars stacking up there, I think that the applicants address that significantly with the relocation of the parking spaces as well, the exit lane that runs parallel to the building. You recently went through a remodel. Can you describe what the purpose of that was? Was that to add flow to the drive-through or add more seats to the restaurant?
No, the purpose of the redesign and remodel inside was to create a better dining experience for our guests and serve all channels independently. Because you have third-party dine-in, carry-out, drive-through, catering. We can independently serve all of them. And then we have a workflow to where our store works very effectively on role specialization. So we'll run more people to handle our business, and we can actually spread them out and continue all of those channels of business going at one time. Whereas before it was a hindrance on our front counter area to be able to continue to move all facets of the business at one time. Our goal is also to hopefully help pull third party through the drive-through if we have to eliminate some of that traffic congestion in the front of the lot. So we have all kinds of opportunities to deal with the traffic. We're just trying to maximize the space we have so we can continue to keep that traffic flowing and getting out.
What I'm curious about is with what you described, making efficiencies in the dining room and the third-party service, what effect do you think that that's had on demand, specifically in the queuing cars that are entering the property? I mean, are more people inside the restaurant? They're full.
Dining has gone down.
Sir, could I make sure you speak into the microphone too, please?
Sorry.
We're losing you a bunch. Thanks.
Sorry. Dine-in has drastically decreased since COVID hit. You're doing 15% of our business as dine-in guests. The rest of that, you're doing 65% through drive-through. So that leaves 60, 75, 25% is third party and catering. Most people aren't dining in. Most people want to get in and get out.
And I also am aware that there's another location that opened not too long far from you. Do you think that's going to affect the traffic on your site?
It's affected the traffic now because it's a new location. It's kind of like anything else. You open another brand new, shiny looking business in the area. People want to go check out what's new, see what's happening there. We've already increased this week 8% back in sales from what we've previously lost in December when they were closed. And all of that has been drive-through increase.
So again, just observation. I think that they've done the best they can with the site, what it provides.
Well, and I think the dilemma is they're so good at the drive-through business. There's no incentive to park and go in because I can get through the drive-through line, more efficiently than if I park and go in. So it's kind of like the more successful you are at it, the more you're going to encounter this.
Well, as it is right now, we get a handful of guests. If they are at the stoplight on Eager Road, by the time they get through our line and have their food and driving away, they're complimenting us on 9 or 10 minutes to get through the entire line. So I know that we're pushing it as quick as we can on our side. How do we get that traffic in to keep traffic flowing for everybody?
So noodling about on a drawing. Unfortunately, Mr. Cannon's suggestion of turning out where the dumpsters are, I don't think the radius works with where the actual drive-through is, where they're actually handing out the food. It's too far west. And there's 2 transformers. So you're threading the needle between the 2 transformers, which are 33 feet apart. To Mr. Carlin's point, your lay-by lane is only 1 parking space. It's roughly 30 feet. But with that 33 feet between, you got 12-foot curb to face a building at the point where you're handing off food. When you turn out going toward the beauty store, you're at 14.7. Why can't you move that outside curb closer to the transformer by 10 or 11 feet? You're still going to clear it with a radius. And now you've got a lay-by lane that's actually a widened exit lane out. You're not creating a second conflict point, and it's almost the inverse of how you're bringing people in.
Or if you want to go.
Just for clarification, as you exit our drive-through now, you're talking about widening the space in between that transformer and beauty brands? Correct. So also keep in mind that that is 2-way traffic for people to get behind the complex. You have tractor trailers, fire trucks.
Still literally
Yeah, no,
just-
you're
Yeah,
missing.
that's a fire lane there.
No, that's not what you're saying, though.
That's
You're
not what
saying
I'm saying.
widen between the 2 transformers, north-south.
okay.
Widen.
Hand me
I'm
the
sorry.
puck.
Yeah.
Hit the puck.
Hand it to me, please. Does that have to turn red, Whitney? I did last month when I ran this for ARB. Essentially building a lay-by lane by widening your existing exit lane.
I think that that's a viable option, but one thing that when we're designing, we like to maintain circular patterns for pedestrians as well. So by eliminating that crosswalk right there, and because we'll still have to keep those remove those stalls. Sorry, I can't. Yeah, in order to not have like a car pulling around right where a car is parked, we'll still need to keep that kind of crossing area. That was part of the intent of the design as well, to keep the pedestrians able to cross throughout the parking or throughout the entire plaza. So I mean, you know, without doing like a full, you know, design of it to see how things would fit, you know, it certainly is a viable option, but that's just my initial reaction of, we try to move away from removing any sort of circular path for ADA connection purposes for throughout the entire property.
Yeah, but we're still clear of where, even if I transpose lines down from curb lines down to your old parking space there, you've already lost two, you might be losing one if you take those two back, and you could still, sorry. Still got room to put a crosswalk if you had to next to the transformer. I don't know, I'm just it seems like you've got enough width there in the 33-foot transformer to transformer. Take out a few feet for bollards. It's only one car you're gaining in the lay-by lane. You could almost do the inverse of what you do by bringing people in, by spreading them out horizontally on the exit and still achieve the same goal. And I'm an architect, not a civil engineer, so there you go.
So
That's
it'd be two cars next to each other, possibly making a left-hand lane, communicating between the two of them who needs to go when they need to go.
Which is exactly what you have when everyone's trying to merge.
Correct. Yeah. Well, so at our pinch point, if you will, where the two menu boards go to one, during our peak periods, we have somebody outside that navigates that. So.
I haven't seen anyone there, but anyway.
I mean, so I see both points. I do know that to your point with the two, you know, the one car is laid by and waiting, and then the other is going to bypass on the right side of that car and then go out left around them. So you're right. If the person in the lay-by gets their food, doesn't look right, hits the gas, then they could probably smack into somebody. That is true, right? You know, and again, I'm with deference to actual traffic engineers. You know, but I see your point, right? I don't know. All situations require someone to operate their vehicle with care, like, you know, and so, and I do think a lot of drive-through restaurants they function exactly the way you just described it, right? Maybe that's not the right way. So I don't know. I can see both ways. I'm not sure which one is less disruptive. Just still thinking about
kind of
it.
just moving where the complication almost is in a sense of, you know, who's communicating with who. And that's kind of the added bonus of, you know, moving them out of the lane so that way the continued traffic can just go without like get completely out of their store and back around into the lane, not hesitating, oh, is the person in the lay-by lane gonna go? Do I need to go? It allows them to kind of pull forward, get out of the line entirely, and not be even like a visible problem for anyone else leaving the facility behind them.
I do want to, we didn't finish everything, like,
We
so
need
we
to
can
get to the
into
landscape design still.
landscaping as well.
We go ahead and look at the landscape design and then.
Close off yours, Matt. Oh, okay. Is it up there? Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Andrew Frankian, much like Lee Cannon. We're the city's landscape architect on call. I'm with Planning Design Studio. On September 22nd, we prepared a memo. We reviewed the initial plans with regard to the landscape and site issues. The petitioner received that letter and addressed our comments. We produced a letter dated January 4th, 2024, where we said that basically we were satisfied with the revised plans with the exception of 2 points. The first was, like we've been talking about, this transformer. And our position is that we felt it obstructed the sight lines. I've got a picture that I can hand out. Just we kind of took a picture of that sight line. We were on the sidewalk. We weren't actually in the travel lane, but I'll pass that around to everybody to look at.
Andy, I also have it up on the screen too. Yeah.
Wow, the miracle of technology, huh? So that was our primary concern. We didn't feel that the petitioner had proved to at least myself that there wouldn't be a sightline obstruction there. And like Lee has mentioned, with all these intersections, all this traffic, just adding an obstructed area to see or a partially obstructed one just makes the situation even worse. So that was our first objection. Our second was a kind of a new comment based on the revised plan, and Whitney talked a little bit about this. And it was the two issues. It really kind of pertains to the outdoor dining area. And one of the things to keep in mind about the outdoor dining area is it's kind of critical to the site plan because it gave them the site bonus because they were over their site coverage. So it's really important from a site development standpoint that they maintain what kind of that area. We felt that area was really critical, that they maintain the outdoor dining area. So the two issues with that were the fence. We weren't exactly sure if there was a fence. It appears that there is actually going to be a fence, and it's going to be replaced exactly with what's out there today. But the other issue that we had was that there needs to be a circulation sidewalk like Whitney talked about, kind of buffering that outdoor dining area from the parking lot. And so we did not see that, and we would like the petitioner to consider adding that back in all the way through. And I'm a little bit confused, and maybe the petitioner can help me understand that, but it looks like on the site plan that we were just looking at, that the sidewalk on the southern portion of that outdoor dining area actually is also the outdoor dining area, so it kind of constricts it. So if you put tables out there, the tables are really over the sidewalk on the south side of that. If you look at the landscape plan, those two tables, but you don't see the sidewalk. So that's kind of, at least my confusion is, if you have the tables out there in the outdoor dining, where's that sidewalk? The other issue that we're a little bit concerned about is without that sidewalk between the fence and the parking lot, people that pull in, if they drive to where they drive until they touch something, might hit the fence because there's no curb stops in that parking lot either. Again, it's a tight site. We understand that. They're trying to widen that area to improve circulation, but it's, I think, at the expense of some of the space in the outdoor dining area. So those were the items that we found on our most recent review. Anybody have any questions?
I did have a question.
Sure.
Hold on. Come back up here. So we saw on it looks like the outdoor dining, there's two parts of it. They flank the front door. The bottom section, I know you had on there 4.5, but you said with the curb is 5 feet. What about the north section? It looks like the parking spots come right up to the outside dining. Oh, yeah. Come up to the microphone, please. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. The fence, if you get it back up by any chance, the fence is what divides that sidewalk to address the landscape issue. That decorative fence does mark where the patio area exists, as well as, and then separates where the sidewalk is. And then for the northern part, sorry. I think the concern is that there's no sidewalk on the north side. I guess my statement back to that is why would that necessarily be needed? Just because there's no path for why would a pedestrian be walking that way when they come, sorry. store, or once they go into the store and out to the patio area. Personally, I just don't quite see the need for that there. Yeah, so it was just allowed for, again, us to, because the key component here too is why are we even moving those stalls up? And it's to allow for a wider lane and backing up area for the cars parking there so they don't disturb the incoming traffic, which, as we've said, is the primary flow point. So again, don't quite see the point for the sidewalk up there, just because there's no ADA. That's a big concern for us as well. Obviously, we want to make sure there's all modalities that have access to the site, and there isn't really any need for a pedestrian to walk that way.
Sure. Yes.
Oh, yeah, just take it off.
All right, rock on. This is a great slide. Wow, this is really interactive. So to that point, the sidewalk to the north would be used by people walking across the parking lot from the other side, walking between the parking spaces and then getting on the sidewalk and walking in is kind of our thought. This is also a really good image because you can kind of see from the aerial photography the red umbrellas, and you can almost see how they sort of encroach onto that sidewalk. And that was our other concern, is that that's kind of getting necked down. So.
There's a space for people to walk in between the building and the patio seating right
Like
now.
on the northern side of
Yes,
area.
yes.
So I think that was where.
Yeah, I'm, like, if there's a car here within this parking space and there's someone also in this parking spaces, they would have to go behind the cars to get to the front door. There wouldn't be any pathway in front for them to go. Right.
Can I ask a question?
No, no, no.
Okay, yeah, I do see that point. I think there may be opportunity to move some of the stalls back to allow for that pathway, or to place a sidewalk. That's that stall to connect it back into the patio area. So instead of moving that stall back, so that way we still achieve that, maybe changing the landscape area and reconfiguring that to allow for.
Do you still have enough?
Phones.
Change the layout
Thanks a lot, appreciate it.
of their patio area.
So you really don't want to widen that outdoor dining area and push anything? How much room you have to give in the parking lot?
Well, that's, because I think if we add that 5 feet back in,
Uh-huh.
we're pushing the stalls back to their original position.
Okay.
And so that's what we're trying to avoid.
Understood. I
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
that.
because
Understand
that
that.
was a key component of the design.
Can you grab
Yeah,
the mic?
it's in the microphone.
Sorry.
Get your own mic. Get your own mic.
Okay, now I see there's another one. So to reiterate that, there isn't much room to give for that, that area, because if we were to push that sidewalk back out, we would be decreasing the drive lane. Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah,
know what
sorry.
you're trying to do. Yeah.
Do you plan on maintaining all the existing fixtures for seating out in the patio area, keeping all the tables?
Oh, thank you. I, yeah. I honestly am not sure what the plans show for the outdoor patio. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer, but I don't know what that outside patio looks like once we move the parking spots in. So I don't know how many patio tables there will be left at that point.
So again, it's more operationally, that's something for Chick-fil-A to kind of decide, and I think we can create the space to allow for, obviously, the key is to get pedestrians and patrons in, right? So I think Chick-fil-A would be willing to move items around, movable items around, to be able to create that space. So I absolutely think we can add the sidewalk to the north if there's, concern about the folks walking behind. I'm not familiar if that's a code for the city, to not allow walk behinds, for regular pedestrians, I'll say, not for folks parked in the standard stalls. If there's a specific code for that, we want to make sure we're maintaining that. But that's just my other response to that. Some folks walk behind in the parking lots. It's an inherent part of the parking lots.
So my understanding is that north of the doorway, the sidewalk is not a larger site circulation piece. It's just for your own site, right?
Correct.
There's nothing coming
As
anywhere
far,
else.
yeah.
Okay.
As far as I understand.
So I understand the idea, and I think it probably is just an idea of people coming out the door, going down the sidewalk, and then down into the larger site, right? So that's what the sidewalk is for. You're maintaining it. What is the purpose of the fence I've referred to at the head end of the parking?
I think just but not I think, to create a space between the pedestrians and the patio area. And as indicated in the report, it was, we were asked that it maintain. So I think that was part of our plan here as we were creating this design, was to make sure things don't change too much. And so since that fence is existing, we're replacing it. And it keeps people, primarily like people sitting at the patio area, outside of the main walkway. So instead of like putting their bags down or putting, maybe sitting their legs out, it keeps that path open for other pedestrians.
So to the point of the greater good someone mentioned here, I'm sorry, my throat went crazy, but the idea of widening the aisle, which is causing all of this current discussion,
Right.
is to help ease the traffic flow and get people off of Eager, right?
Yeah.
So it would seem to be a greater good argument, I think, with deference to how the fence got in the project, like a lot of restaurants don't do that. You just walk out of the parking lot straight onto the place where the tables are. I could personally question the benefit of it, existing at all, but I don't care if it stays, So I think the greater good picture is widening is going to help the flow and get the thing moving faster, right?
So I would like to, anytime we've done a review of outdoor patio area, it has always included that outdoor dining must be enclosed to separate the right-of-way, both for the privacy of the patron and the unimpeding flow of the traffic and parking areas. The barrier is to provide as well as safety, but to create a more inviting environment so that someone doesn't just accidentally drive over it. We've reviewed those on other patio areas to include that. So.
And I appreciate that. I know that we could find examples where it isn't there, and where it is, and someone could drive through it if they really meant to, So it's not material. So if it doesn't affect the conversation we're having, so that's fine. I just, as long as there's no need for larger site circulation north of that door, then I don't know that it really matters either way, honestly.
Yeah, I guess my question was, is there a code for there has to be a certain buffer between a parking lot and an outdoor seating area? I thought that was another purpose of the sidewalk, or can you just have a car parked, the fence, and someone sitting right on the other side of that fence?
Our current code doesn't have anything. We've reviewed it as part of the outdoor dining. The curb, cars can have up to 2 feet overhang. So that's why you would also want the barrier. If they pull up the wheel, if they use the curb as the wheel stop, there could be up to 2 feet,
Fence kind of tells a car you need to stop. Okay. Got it.
And it creates a better environment when there's separation from the parking and where you're seating.
And I guess my other question is are they required to have so many seats outside? Or if they're reducing this and they went to half the outdoor seating to make the traffic flow better, that's fine then.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if they had to
They
have.
don't have any, it was part of their
Okay,
site coverage bonus in
Okay.
2015 and 2017.
yeah, I just didn't know if they were required to have a certain area for.
The other take on that is, again, it goes back to the bonus.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make this as good as we can.
Sure.
Otherwise, if you start winnowing it down and down and down, then the next guy says, well, look, with Chick-fil-A, they only have three
Right.
things, and you gave them a bonus to get them,
Gotcha.
so that's, we're trying to make it, and that, again, the fence kind of adds to the quality of that space. It allows it to qualify as the bonus, so.
That answers my question.
Your point, though, if we do the sidewalk on the north of the entry, isn't it essentially the same size outdoor seating area that's south of the entry? And couldn't that expand, because we're moving the curb line on the south side of the driveway going toward the order taking? Couldn't that outdoor seating actually expand further north?
You mean, farther up that way?
Right, there's that gray block
Yep,
up there.
uh-huh.
They could actually go
Yeah,
on the
they
west
could-
side of that gray block further up
They could,
to net out a larger square footage.
unless you guys have something else going in that space. I think they certainly could.
I think we determined we don't need that north sidewalk.
No, I'm talking about
Yeah.
if we're squeezing the seating area by
Right.
including the sidewalk, they could expand the seating area to recover that.
Right, but pardon me if I'm misspeaking, but I thought it was kind of determined, okay, since we don't need a certain buffer or, have pedestrian issues from the north, that we don't really need that sidewalk on the north, so. Lee?
I didn't want to get left out. I do have a concern, though, in the way that the restaurant is laid out with the pedestrians coming from parking stalls and wanting to access the front door. There's a fence around the dining area. How, if I am parked kind of around the curve of where the parking turns, how do I walk into the front door? Do I have a way, do I have to enter like a sidewalk on the north side of that dining area and walk through the dining area to get to the front door? Or do I have to walk around the fence, to those head-in stalls and then walk in the hashed out areas of the handicap to get in? How do those people get into the building if they're directly north of the building around to that kind of that corner area? Where is their path?
Come through the dining here.
So they come through, they walk in between the tables to get there, so.
I was thinking, this
Should-
car here and this car here needs a sidewalk here. If people are walking from over here to get here to walk this way, that would be another path that people would walk to.
I think people naturally
they
will
can-
flow through those head-in stalls, and then they're gonna get to a fence. And then they're gonna kind of wiggle between a bumper and a fence. It does seem a bit awkward. There should be a natural pathway to get from all the parking stalls into the building. I don't know that this does that.
Do we have a recommendation? Is there a staff recommendation at the end of this? Is there?
Well, there's three choices. Yeah.
Yeah,
For that which was submitted.
Well, I mean,
yeah, so here.
yeah,
So basically, we needed to provide direction on, or get your thoughts on the safety and traffic concerns for the second drive-through or lay-by lane exit. the sight lines of the above-grade transformer box at the exit and providing a walkway between the parked cars and outdoor dining and patio area. And if the overall landscape and design to qualify for the, continue to qualify for the site coverage bonus. So we can move this for further review. I mean, we can, if y'all are satisfied with everything or wanting to make conditions, y'all can approve it tonight and move it forward to the Board of Aldermen. Or it can be moved to the Site Plan Subcommittee for further discussion and modifications or continued discussion, or continue it to the February 14th meeting.
Yeah, so want to make them, I think there needs to be further discussion, but that's my opinion. So does anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Plan subcommittee on January 31st.
Any, a second?
Second.
Second?
Mark Favazza,
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Brian Nolan,
Yes.
Carl Carlin,
Yes.
Jeff Moore. Yes. Jeff Hunt,
Yes.
Paul Moran, yes. It was unanimous.
Okay, so we will go to subcommittee then. And what's that date again?
January 31st,
Okay, at what time?
6.
6 in the conference
Conference
room
room.
over here. Okay, thank you. All right, we do have one other new item of business. Item 23-16, a site plan review for a building addition at the Goodwill store. I see there's we need a
Yeah,
motion
they
to
have
table?
asked to table the discussion. They're going through, I think, budgeting.
Okay,
And we will renotice when they are ready to proceed.
okay, this says here
So
motion
we
to table.
just need, yeah, we just need a motion to table.
Okay, do I have a motion to table?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second, and we can do by proclamation, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Oh,
Wait.
Oh, no. Sure. Oh, okay, so,
Revising my motion as described.
okay, and a second?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go. Okay, let's see, doesn't look like we have any new business. Are there any aldermen online? I don't see any out in the audience. Do we have a report?
Well, we will have the continuation of the site plan subcommittee for the site plan subcommittee at the next meeting. We have not yet received an application, new application. However, I am working on a couple of text amendments that I will try to bring forward at that time too.
Okay. And do I have a motion to,
Chairman,
Yes.
motion to adjourn.
second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting adjourned.